30 seconds and counting.
Aye.
Astronauts reported.
Hi, I'm Loren, and I'm an astrologer. I am a traditional Western Hellenistic astrologer, and I also dabble in evolutionary astrology because I do acknowledge the zodiac as an evolutionary process. As well, dabble in Jyotish sidereal astrology as I love the history of astrology rooted in the language of light, and therefore the religion of light, of worshiping the sun. With that being said, I would like to talk about this upcoming full moon on June 11th. That's going to be a huge one. Let's get into it. So we have an upcoming full moon on June 11th in Jupiter Sagittarius, which is a Jupiter-ruled sign. And this means that this full moon is one considered beneficial, lucky, exuberant, because Sagittarius, Jupiter ruled, is big energy. It's big energy or go home energy. Okay. It's big talk, big dreaming, and also the desire to reach beyond our horizons and stretch ourselves. Yeah. And why this full moon is even more significant is that it is in mutual reception with Jupiter. And Jupiter is newly in the sign of Cancer. We've all been waiting for this energy. Why? Because 2025 has been a huge SHIT show. Okay. And that energy has actually served us, even though it has tried us, but it has served us because it has given us so much energy to work with that we are now getting the first taste of what it is to transcend that material. Okay. If you don't know what I'm talking about Mars in Cancer, then in retrograde. I'm talking about followed by Venus in Aries in its fall, then in retrograde. Mind you, Mars was in fall in Cancer as well. And then they retrograded. And then they came back to ensure we got the lesson. Dig deep, turn that knife in just to make sure we got it the first time, and then also the second, and so then the third. So I hope you're following what I'm saying. It was tough, okay, particularly for my Cancers and my Venus ruled people, also my Mars people. And how could we forget? Saturn was in Pisces conjuncting the North Node, and the North Node makes everything bigger. Therefore, the lessons, particularly Saturn ones, bigger. And I am in a Saturn profected year, which is a timing technique. If you're interested in learning more about that and knowing your particular profected year, I would suggest you hit up astroseek.com. It helps with so many different charts. And of course, I love astro.com, one of my go-to tools, everything astrology. But if you're interested in learning with me, and when I say learn with me, because I am a trained educator and I've been doing that for a very long time. However, I bring this up because I am also starting a co-learning space for us to learn together. I am doing this because this full moon is asking me to, right? And also because I believe astrology can never be mastered in one lifetime, never mind 1,000. Why? Because the nature of astrology is essentially trying to watch God and understand the nature of God, of light that I understand as God through archetype, particularly archetype embodied in me, you, everybody you know, everybody I know, and the people we don't even know that haven't been born yet, and the people who've lived that are no longer living, but also have ever existed on the entirety of this planet, which means that in order to master the archetype and master the way in which this archetypal energy will evolve along each sign in each configuration, some in which we haven't even imagined yet, because our imagination does not comprise all that God is, all that light holds. And therefore, it's essential that through a very deep practice of astrology, we are learning together. And therefore, we are sharing together, and we are growing, and we are expanding together. And we're doing so along the language of light that is astrology. So if you're interested in learning more about my co-learning space and joining me to do all the great things, astrology, tracking transits, talking about our experiences, unpacking them with like-minded people, you have to subscribe. Also, like this video, leave a comment, and I will send the deets very, very soon. Stated. But enough about that. Let's get back into this beautiful full moon. So I'm going to talk about the transits for each sign. Okay, this is my first all signs video, and I'm excited. I actually had to redo my video because that's the universe saying, girl, you did that. It was good, but you can do better. And why not? Saturn is now newly minted in Aries, and it's asking all of us to go harder, go bigger, go badder, particularly because it's in a wide trine to this upcoming full moon in Sagittarius. Yes. And Saturn is going to be making a square aspect to Jupiter, newly in Cancer, that is in mutual reception with this full moon in Sag, but also ruling it. Why? We're learning together because Jupiter rules Sagittarius. Jupiter also rules Pisces. So those two signs in particular, Sag and Pisces, are having a really, really blessed time under this full moon. But so are the rest of us. They're just getting extra kisses. And also, honorable mention, my lovely Cancers, because Jupiter, that again is ruling this full moon, is in your sign, loving you up after you haven't gone, after you having to go through the trenches. I know, I know, I know. But we're finally here. We're finally here to enjoy the next 3 months with a bang while the world around us radically changes and evolves. To what it becomes, I don't quite know, but I have some guesses with the breadcrumbs left for us in these unfolding transits, and of course, archetype and the symbolism that the zodiac represents. So I'm going to stop there so we can get into it. Aries, so this full moon is happening for you in your ninth house of foreign travel, traveling abroad, higher learning education systems, educational institutions, as well as book publishing, writing, sometimes learning with a spiritual guru. Also, spiritual practices fall under this house. This is also the house connected to your sense of purpose and or seeking a sense of purpose. This is also sometimes related to the law. And so thinking about philosophies and ethic in terms of how people are intended to relate and be and exist together. Okay. So sometimes it's also divine law, if not the actual law of that's man-made through philosophies. And so there's an ending and or a culmination happening in this ninth house space. It could be as simple as you have finally finished your manuscript and now it's headed for the publisher. So something as incremental as an ending that also is opening up a next huge step or stage in the process of, something becoming in that ninth house space. Maybe you are also wrapping up travel abroad, and or maybe you're learning that you're relocating abroad. This moon is in mutual reception with Jupiter now in the sign of Cancer in your fourth house space. Jupiter is also the ruler of this full moon, and Jupiter likes to be in Cancer, so it's considered exalted in Cancer in that fourth house. So you've had a lot of activity in the fourth house with Mars, your ruler, having gone retrograde in Cancer for several months earlier in the year. Right. And during that time, there could have been a lot of focus on your living situation, your relationship with your parents, particularly your mother, perhaps issues around land, again, home, and even ancestral memories come up in this fourth house space. You could have also been doing some deep psychotherapy in terms of your inner world and your inner landscape, excavating things that just no longer are able to hold space in your energetic body. That's a possibility as well. And so now you're getting this sweetness with Jupiter, the benefic, moving through that fourth house space to really bring blessings that are connected to expanding your home, expanding your sense of family, expanding your sense of feeling safe and feeling nourished, if not outwardly, definitely inwardly. Okay, sometimes Jupiter in the fourth house can correspond with changing homes and moving to a better, bigger home. That is very much a possibility with Jupiter in that fourth house. Maybe you accumulate more homes in the year to come. However, during the time of this full moon, Saturn is now in your first house in the sign of Aries, in addition to Neptune now also in Aries. And so Saturn and Neptune will square Jupiter, again, the ruler of this full moon. And so you are feeling called to have to show up in the world with greater responsibility. You're being called to higher integrity, higher ethic, as well as having a spiritualizing influence on your sense of self, your identity. If you're watching for the moon, think of this as perhaps your emotional world. It could be connected to women in your life if you're watching for the moon. And again, sun, similar to ascendant, but again, more so connected to perhaps masculine authoritative figures in your life, perhaps even like your work, okay? And or career life. And so with Saturn here now squaring Jupiter in the fourth house space, Jupiter expands for better or worse. So that could look like having material that exists in your inner world being expanded, where Saturn is asking you to have to account for that. By which I mean Saturn is also the harvester. So whatever is living in that fourth house space, which is under the surface, it very much informs your being. Sometimes even the reasons why you incarnated into this experience, why you have the family you have, is all coming up for review through this square, through this tension aspect. And squares are the nature of Mars. So you're being asked to resolve it through the container of your body. Again, your identity, your sacred I am. Who are you? Do the ancestral memories, legacies align with who you are now, who you are becoming? Because Aries, you've been doing a lot of work in terms of taking up space, finding the courage, digging deep to take up space, even when there are people that may have resisted this. Challenge your ability to take up space, challenge your ability to be healed, to receive care, because it would be making a square to, again, that fourth house space. And Aries, you come to one, fight, survive, foremost, to be able to take up space, through archetype, to make it past the cold winter, to see the spring, to in effect bloom, right? To develop the ego expression in relation to God, the I am. And so this is a process of rugged individuation that will be happening extensively for you in that first house space, with Saturn right there asking you to account, checking you every step of the way, because it's also bringing forth all that you are manifesting, harvesting with what, again, lives in that fourth house space, informing the I am. And so what's nice about Neptune also here with that spiritualizing effect, it's helping you dissolve the beliefs and or what material you have informing the I am that no longer align with, again, who you are and who you're becoming with greater intention. Okay. And so the beautiful aspect with this is that Jupiter now allows you to expand it. So, or, you can expand bliss or you can expand really challenging situations. It really comes down to what you are choosing, because you are given the power to do so. And with Mars in the sign of Leo transiting your fifth house, making a trine to both the full moon and Chiron in your first house, is really blessed, because it's showing that you are truly taking a stand and being driven toward what truly feeds your heart, feeds your soul, is oriented to the deeper things that give you joy in this life. It's also connected to your creative projects, whether that's your actual children, not that they're projects, but they are yours, as well as perhaps your children that are not necessarily human flesh, but are inanimate. So think about your businesses also fall under the fifth house. Also speculation, and of course, just having fun. Sometimes for some people, this is gambling. For others, it's more leisurely activities, okay? It's your hobbies. And so you are getting really serious. You're putting a lot of focus, a lot of momentum, severing what does not align to make space for what does and what you want to expand and grow, because it brings you satisfaction. And that is very much rooted in your joy. And so it's trining this full moon. So whatever is culminating there is supporting the drive that really feeds your heart and feeds what you are passionate about and aligns with your sense of purpose in the world. And of course, this is not in any way, shape, or form antagonistic to the woundedness that you've had to endure and rightfully fight and take up space to defend yourself against. Instead, the work that you've done in terms of becoming greater in resourcing greater courage to show up is also supporting your ability to truly go after what brings you joy, that is allowing you to fully close a cycle around who you've been in terms of the sense of a contract, a covenant with God, right? In sense of like what your higher beliefs have been, to release them, to bring forth greater space, to step into a new, more authentic, more expressive, also whole person that has a lot of wisdom that you are also being called to share with the world, particularly with these houses that connect to others and definitely demonstrate inspiration through being rather than enforce for force sake. Uh, this is what I have for you, Aries. Good luck and sending you much love. So, Taurus, this full moon is culminating for you in your eighth house of what you share with others and what is shared with you. So, this can look like your partner's resources. It can look like inheritances. It can look like deep psychological material that you take on as your own when you merge, hence do the do with another. And sometimes doing the do is not always sexual relationships, even though it can be, but it can just be deep connecting and sharing with another in which you are receiving from them energetic material and or tangible material, like again, the cliche, inheritances, uh, people giving you money. And it's also where you can receive unearned income. So like things from inheritances as well. But also like insurance is what I wanted to say. And just different ways that large sums of money can come to you. Okay. And so this moon is ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is now in Cancer in your third house space. And so this is showing that what is culminating, what is ending. And of course, each ending is also opening up greater space for beginning, which I think in that eighth house has really great significance because it's all about spaciousness, right? When your partners expand in spaciousness, and Sagittarius loves its space, hence it's constantly in movement, needing to take up space in order to achieve stillness, to achieve a meditative state, right? And so in this house, movement allows for greater receptivity. And so spaciousness, therefore, is connected to greater receptivity. And with Jupiter now in Cancer in that third house, it's expanding your space with your siblings, those who may be younger than you, your neighbors, as well as your cousins, maybe your aunts and uncles, and also people who are prominent figures or regular figures in your local neighborhood. Okay. And sometimes this can look like your childhood friends. As well, the third house is connected to sometimes how you process information, your mental processing. Also, sometimes that's including filters and the way that you orient to ideas, ideation, speaking, communication. And for you, it's always tinted by a level of needing to care, right? There's a level of connecting to these people that I've discussed as your family, even if they're not blood relationship. There's a sense of tribalness that's connected to your third house. And so this tribalness also informs the meaning making that you make, that informs how you relate to ideas that then become beliefs, again, in that ninth house space. However, with Sagittarius ruling your eighth house space, there's a sense of those beliefs very much informing how you're able to receive and also share with others in a very deeply intimate way. And there's a culmination happening in that space that's connected now to, again, the way you ideate and also your siblings, your neighbors, your cousins from that third house space as Moon and Jupiter are in mutual reception. As well, Jupiter likes to be in Cancer, so it's expanding that third house space and just like, feeling better with siblings. Maybe you were fighting with your younger sibling because they were just so annoying because Mars had previously gone through that third house space, just really creating a mess. Even though Mars does make it an aspect to you, which is sextile, so it may not have felt as terrible, even though it would have still been hard. Maybe your sibling was having a really hard time. Maybe your neighbors, maybe your cousins were having a hard time, and you didn't feel as strong and or well equipped to support them. Your words were not enough, even though, typically you do have a nurturing role to these people in your life by way of having Cancer rule that third house space. As well, Venus, your chart ruler, is now in the sign of Taurus, loving you up my Taurus people, you're looking better, you're feeling better, you're feeling more magnetic. And you definitely deserve it because you had Venus for a long time, your chart ruler moving retrograde through that 12th house space, where you also have had Chiron still there, which is on a positive note, making a trine to the full moon, and also Mars in your fourth house space, which has also been, getting you more serious, maybe more aggressive in cutting out what you don't like, telling your family what you don't like about what does it serve you in terms of your heart, right? In terms of how you want family dinners to be. Maybe you want more togetherness. And so someone has been, MIA because they've been taking on too much work. And you're like, hey, I'm going to be very assertive about what I think this family needs to bring us back together because you are very loving and you love your family and your family is your heart. And for you, home is where the heart is. And so with Venus now in Taurus, you're feeling better because previously you were dealing with Venus in Aries ruled by Mars. So lots of things stirring up in terms of how you relate to your romantic partners, how you relate to your anger, particularly in love relationships, particularly as you relate to others, particularly those that you love. Okay. And so it may have been a time where you had to, for the sake of your love, confront rage, confront perhaps unhealthy relationships or dynamics you have to your anger and to things that frustrate you with others that you may have been repressing, and through repression attracting more aggression from others that for you may be very disorienting as you don't like problems. Most Taurus people are afraid of anger, to be quite frank. And yet you have Mars ruling that seventh house space, which can open you up to greater aggression in your one-to-one dynamics. So in this way, Venus retrograde was teaching you a lot about love, and radical honesty in terms of why it's important for you to authentically express yourself, fight for yourself, take up space as a way that honors your deeply loving nature, Taurus. But now Venus is in your sign, so you're feeling better. It's feeling easier to be you and to be appreciated for being you. You're feeling more stable and attractive and sensual because Venus is your ruler. Venus is in domicile when it is in Taurus. And it's also sextiling Jupiter, the ruler of this new moon. So you're feeling better and it's jiving with the people around you. Day-to-day life may feel better. Communication, correspondences, short distance travel is feeling better and feeling luckier. However, Saturn has now moved into your 12th house space in addition to Neptune. Neptune likes the 12th house, so that's not too hard. It's helping to dissolve all the things that came up when Venus and Mercury retrograde were in Aries, if we're going to be fair to all the retrogrades. And it's helping now to dissolve those patterns that no longer serve you, those values in terms of how you may have valued yourself, as someone who didn't say that they were angry because you didn't want to rock the boat, because you wanted to be that loyal force for your lover, for your partners, right? But yet not necessarily being fair to yourself. And so now Saturn is really holding you to be accountable to those choices you've made to shift and review and move forward as the loving Venusian that you are as it relates to your partners, your relationships with others that ask you to have to resolve and express authentically in healthy ways anger, right? That, of course, does not include repression, right? It's about how this honors you and honors your sacred I am. That is very much about you sometimes also needing a lot of space to process, okay? And so Saturn there, as I mentioned, is going to make sure you're accountable at each step of the way. And Neptune is going to help you dissolve that which no longer is who you are and who you are becoming, okay? And so this is going to have huge impacts for your one-to-one relationships, the contracts you're going to say yes to, how you also present yourself in terms of your audience and your marketplace, and therefore their reception to you. And with Venus now in the first house, do you feel better? Okay. And it's making a yod, a finger of God to this full moon, or as the moon moves to its fullness with now Jupiter. Okay. So in this way, Venus and Jupiter in Cancer, both in conjunct Sagittarius. And so there's there's an exit point for this intense energy that kind of feels like out of our hands, out of our control. And it's coming out of your second house where you have Gemini and the sun is there because it's a full moon. And so here we're seeing, ideas shift, right? Perhaps you're also seeing something in terms of your idea about yourself, about your self-worth, about maybe things that you eat, what you don't eat, about how you make meaning in ways that may not actually encompass all the information that truly serves you and allows you to be more receptive to the freedom that you want, particularly as it relates to receiving and giving to others in a deep way. Okay. Sag loves freedom. Okay. And that's again in that very intense space in terms of when you go deep with another person. And so something's happening there that's going to be like a aha moment that's going to shift something important for you. And it's going to allow, again, it's going to allow and also show you how the soil is being tilled for that third house space to expand in ways that truly, truly allow you to go deep, that also allows you to be self-possessed, free, to therefore truly be intimate and receive from a place that aligns with a greater wholeness that perhaps you've never seen before. This is a very beneficial, blessed full moon. Okay. And it's really showing up for you in terms of the eighth house space. It could even look like a huge debt being removed from your life. And of course, that sense of freedom I was mentioning would be linked to perhaps feeling unburdened by a block you had where someone really hurt you and made you angry and you couldn't forgive them. And so the culmination, the ending of that now opens you up to be more receptive to greater resources, because we know that energy is directly connected to your receptivity to resources. And in that eighth house, I mentioned those resources can be financial, they can be tangible, or they can be energetic. And most times they're both. Okay. Mars, I mentioned, is in your fourth house, making a grand trine to this moon, supporting it. So it could have to do with family, as I mentioned before, right? You being able now to express yourself, what you want, without feeling like you're being too much or that's not acceptable, because you've created spaciousness, or it's been created for you with this yod releasing in that second house space where we've had Jupiter spending a lot of time to help us be more open to a multitude of ideas, even if we don't like them, but it helped us to exercise different ways to see the world, see ourselves, see a situation, and therefore play with meaning making to really allow us to get more aware and informed about what it is we're choosing to believe. Hence, that then informs the opposite polarity, Sagittarius, the sister sign of Gemini, that again rules this full moon and is in your eighth house. That's what I have for you, Taurus. I'm sending you so much love and good luck. Gemini, this is about you. And yes, I'm losing my light, but pay no mind, I'm still here. So Gemini, this is happening for you in your seventh house space. You are having a culmination with this beautiful Jupiter-ruled full moon in the sign of Sagittarius, which rules your one-to-one partners, your contracts, your audience, your marketplace, and also your open enemies. And of course, this is the area of divination for you. It's when you meet the world one-on-one. And so for you, my dear Geminis, you are having this culmination with your partner. Perhaps a relationship is ending. I'm so sorry to say that. But also where something ends, something is also beginning for you, and or it can be one stage of your relationship ending. Perhaps you were dating and now you're getting serious, and so you're having commitment. So one agreement is closing for a more stronger, more solid one to now emerge. How exciting. Also, Geminis, so this moon is a neutral reception with Jupiter in Cancer, now newly minted in your second house. You've had the time of your life having Jupiter move through your first. You may have gained weight. You may have just had the spotlight all up on you and really loving that up. However, it has not come easy because you've had Saturn, previously in the sign of Pisces, squaring your Jupiter year. And so for all of the limelight and the blessings did not come without its challenges and its work asking you to really metabolize dense energies in terms of what was shifting in your career, heavier responsibilities, and very much a dissolving too of responsibilities while trying to stabilize that area for so long, because Neptune also now in Aries was once in Pisces for the past 11 years. So career was just shaky ground no matter how much you put into it. But that's changing, Gemini, because Saturn is now in the sign of Aries with Neptune in your 11th house. So I want to get back to, however, Jupiter now in Cancer in your second house. So this is expanding your ability to earn income. It's also expanding your sense of care and being receptive to care. That again is very much connected to your ability to feel like you truly have something, to feel that you're worth it, to enhance your self-esteem, and also to make you more attractive to resources, to income earning activities, and also to support you to, again, feel like you have solid ground under you. And of course, Jupiter is a mutual reception with this full moon in Sagittarius and also the ruler of it. And so, what is taking place in that seventh house where something is changing with partnerships, something is culminating, maybe closing out to expand and allow for something even better, is very much informed by what is taking place in terms of how you are able to care and receive care that is supporting greater income earning activities. Maybe it's a new job, a new stream of income. Maybe it's about shifting your diet to also take in things into your body that truly have a more nurturing, soothing effect on your digestive system. Maybe it's also supporting you having time that's more intimate with your family. As well, Saturn now in the sign of Aries with Neptune also in that sign in your 11th house is helping you get really serious about your friendships, your associations, your group associations, your networks, also your long-term hopes and dreams. Now you are really seeing more clearly what dreams are those that can stay and what dreams are calling forth you to be more serious about your individuation process, particularly that within your groups of association. And so here you're being asked to walk with more integrity, also seeing the spiritual threads with your friends and also those that no longer align with the journey that your soul is on, particularly as you step forward with greater resilience and a greater commitment to seeing and manifesting, giving concrete form to your long-term hopes and dreams, but also releasing those that are no longer aligned, which can also be a very painful process that is being expanded under this full moon because it is also being squared by Jupiter. Excuse me, but this full moon is not being squared by Jupiter. Jupiter in Cancer is squaring Saturn under this full moon as it's resourcing and telling this full moon what to do. Okay. And so this is going to look like getting more serious about your dreams, your hopes, your friend groups, what truly serves and what has been delusion based on values that are no longer applicable to your life, and how this directly connects to your sense of being a force of care that is received by those you wish to care for, and vice versa, being receptive to the way in which other people show up to nurture. And how that lands in terms of your emotional landscape. Is that really you anymore? Do those friends match? Right? And how this all speaks to the partnerships that are closing out and the ones that will emerge after this moon. Okay. But remember that it's a blessed moon. So there's a sacredness that's happening here. And with your chart ruler, Mercury, also in the sign of Cancer at the time of this full moon, means that you're not only feeling your feelings, sweet Gemini, you're also able to connect your strong mental faculty to what it is you're feeling and what you're intuiting that supports a greater sense of self-worth, self-respect, loving care for yourself, and also therefore for others. Mars is in the third house space, Gemini, and it's trining Chiron in that 11th house space. So you've had a lot of pain around your long-term hopes and dreams and your friends. Maybe there have been like, friends where you've grown apart, maybe even like betrayals or just letdowns that now are showing you what has been learned through that woundedness is actually supporting you to be more of a force in your community with your local neighbors, maybe your community center and people who frequent it, who really appreciate your no nonsense approach when it comes to your meeting with your heart and really affirming creativity, uh, play, and things that support authentic creative self-expression for yourself and also for others, as it's in a really harmonious trine to that 11th house space of your friendship groups, your networks, your hopes and dreams, and just how we share ourselves authentically with others, particularly as a part of a larger network. And this is all supporting the full moon and supported by the full moon as it's creating a grand trine with these angles in your chart. So the 11th, the 3rd, and the 7th. So the 11th is also the house of good fortune. And so you're seeing some blessings here, but they come when you show up and do the work. Okay. That is what I have for you, Geminis. Sending you much love and good luck. Doing these readings, let me tell you, it takes time. But that's just my little intercession to give myself a little break. Let's get back into it. Hi, Cancers. So this full moon is equally important to you as all of us, but a little bit more similar to our Pisces and our Sagittarius because Jupiter is now in your sign and is ruling this full moon in the sign of Sagittarius in your 6th house of day-to-day work, routines, health, and small animals. So you're having an ending in the 6th house, and it's in mutual reception with Jupiter now in your 1st house, Cancers. So you've been through it, we know it, but now you're getting some of the blessings that your faith has told you are coming, right? With Jupiter in that 12th house space, you have been trusting more and more what you cannot necessarily see, but the intuitions you get from something always around you, right? That also is a part of you. And it comes through little messages and downloads, intuitive insight. Even though you may not always be able to touch it and point to it, you know it's there. And it's been helping you to develop your resiliency and your spiritual confidence to trust it. And now you're seeing a lot of the blessings show up, particularly around this full moon, culminating that 6th house space. It can look like a health issue, healing, or becoming clear about what has been happening in this space. It also can look like perhaps someone you've worked with, an employee leaving, maybe someone who has a different background than you, but who has been jovial, breath of fresh air, someone who's funny, maybe a little reckless, maybe leaving the workspace and or the working relationship. It's going to also look like you closing out a particular debt that's connected to somewhere abroad. Also, maybe you're finishing work that has been just dragging you down and really hard because, of course, your 6th house has been squared by Saturn and amplified by the node, the North Node in Pisces in that 9th house space where you are really coming into deeper alignment with a deeper belief in yourself, your life purpose, and that your life has a purpose, sweet, dear Cancers. And it does. And with Jupiter now in your sign, conjunct Mercury, where Jupiter was for so long, and where you really developed your intuitive faculties to trust your mind as much as you know what it is you feel. You're never confused about what you do. So what this is showing up as is that the blessings that are now happening for you and culminating that 6th house phase have everything to do with a more refreshed, renewed sense of self that's being expanded by Jupiter, aligning you with greater blessings. And as well, because you've had Venus for so long in that, 10th house space in retrograde, along with Mercury in retrograde, and they also went direct. So we got a long time with these planets there. And now we have Saturn there, really demonstrating the work that has been done with these extensive retrograde processes in an angular place in your chart where you show up in the world. And now it's Saturn there, it's yielding forth blessings, by which I mean harvest, right? And that which no longer serves you, Neptune dissolves. And you've been doing the work there, Cancer, because previously in the earlier year, you had Mars retrograding in your first house. So you had to really get on your game and cut out that which no longer serves you, no matter how much it hurts you, right? You also previously had Pluto moving through that seventh house space. So really intense partners that may have driven you crazy, but now you had the sword to really say enough is enough and create boundaries for yourself. And it could have been really trying. But I say this all because with Jupiter now coming into the first house space, it is expanding all the work you've done and bringing greater ease, right? It's expanding the importance of your care, affirming and definitely showing you why your intuitive capacities and your choices really matter and how they actually have served you. It's bringing forth the bounty. And yes, there's a square to Saturn, so it's expanding how you're feeling and the responsibility now in that 10th house space, because you're being asked to show up with greater integrity in terms of your sacred I am, that very much is informed by the material that you have been tilling through your waving of the sword that Mars had given you when it was previously in Cancer and also retrograding for several months. And so now with Saturn in a Mars-ruled sign, in addition to Neptune, you're seeing what you have yielded in terms of your harvest, okay? And what I love about Saturn in Aries, particularly in the archetype of the sacred I am, is that you get to see the work of your individuation process. You get to see what you yield because you take up space and you demand boundaries. Okay. And with Neptune also in Aries, where things no longer serve us, we also have the added benefit of having them dissolved. And Saturn will only manifest that which you are truly invested in, which again is informed by that Cancerian energy in terms of what is the material that we walk with. And with you having that in that first house space, very cognizant of that material, Cancer, it gives you that much more power. And with Jupiter expanding that, girl, you can't go wrong. Okay. Also, I am realizing that you have, not realizing that you know this, but thinking about also Venus ruling your fourth house and also your 11th house with Venus now in the sign of Taurus in that 11th house space, comes into a beautiful sextile with your Cancer sun, rising, or moon, depending on what you're watching for. And it's creating a beautiful yet wide yaw to this full moon in Sagittarius. And the apex point is Gemini. So you're actually seeing a beautiful demonstration that feels very fated, but not fate like it's your fate, you can't help it. But let's say deeper affirmation from the universe that it has your back through gifts that literally seem like they're raining down from heaven in that 12th house space. So maybe it's something that comes from a really far distant place from where you're born, and or maybe it's a dream that really shows you the messages that you need to take into the world, and that shows up in terms of now what your authority is and the foundation of that authority as you create and become a force in the world, as in your career, in your status, in your reputation. And I also think that this is directly connected to your work, right? And the way in which you staying in movement contributes to how you're able to serve, put out fires, address conflict, attend to the practicalities of everyday life. That is very much harmonizing under this full moon with Mars in Leo in your second house. So there could be big expenses and or cutting away expenses that you do not need, that do not serve you, right? That no longer align with the authority that you are very much rooted in stepping into in that 10th house space. Okay, so maybe you're creating a budget right now, my Zodiac Cancers, right? That is also maybe seeing people leave the workspace because it's no longer in alignment with the responsibility and the commitment that you're making to a larger entity, maybe an organization. So this to me screams CEO position, right? After fighting long and hard, with a lot of things against you. Okay. that is what I have for you, my dear Cancers. I'm sending you much love and good luck. Leo, the full moon is culminating for you in your fifth house space. That is perhaps an ending with something in one of your children's life. Maybe it's a creative project coming to a close. Maybe you've been trying to get pregnant and voila, you're pregnant. And or a matter concerning your child is coming to an end. Maybe a romantic relationship is ending and or one phase of this ending and moving to a higher level of commitment. And this is a very auspicious full moon for you with Jupiter now in Cancer and mutual reception with this moon in your 12th house space. Jupiter was previously in Gemini, in your 11th house, blessing up your benefactors, allowing people to just be more giving to you, right? Perhaps you had more outings with your friends. Friends may have been more supportive. You may have just had a really good time in terms of really realizing some of your long-term hopes and dreams. And now with Jupiter in Cancer, with Mercury in mutual reception with this full moon, you're really seeing a culmination of those dreams as they relate to deeply heart-centered achievements. Again, whether in your life with your romantic partner, romantic partner's life, and or that of your children and or creative children you brought forth in the world that may not actually be the humankind. Also, Leo, you have Mars currently in your first house. So you are waving that sword. You've done a lot of work in that 12th house space by yourself, psychologically, really coming to terms with how you understand your nurturing and what you're receptive to. And also perhaps secret wounding around mothering, around the feminine, around how you orient to this 12th house space to receive the things that you need to nourish yourself that very much come from source, spirit, God, a power that's unseen. And so having to wield Mars' sword so long in that space when Mars in Cancer and its fall in that 12th house, it means that you were cutting away patterns that no longer serve you and becoming aware of them ruthlessly, maybe projected and or showing up through others that may have been doing you wrong and needing to cut them out of your life and seeing these ties sever and also with them perhaps agreements that you had that you became aware of that were connected to a deeper sense of how you understood yourself to belong to something beyond just that of your family incarnate, but more so a sense of family that's larger and more connected to all of life, all things, oneness, as that is corresponding with that 12th house space. As well, Leo, you have Saturn newly in the sign of Aries with Neptune in your 9th house space. So this is really bringing greater weight to how you're thinking about your life, how you're thinking about the purpose and the meaning of life as a whole. And through this work, you will be dissolving Neptune beliefs that no longer serve or no longer align with what you're learning when truly, tested against your ability to manifest based on how you've known yourself to be. Hence, Aries, sacred I am in that 9th house space that has for a very long time guided you in terms of your purpose and what you're doing in this life. As well as Chiron in that 9th house space, there's been a lot of wounding, a lot of thoughts and philosophizing around the nature of pain and oppression and why it happens and the purpose of healing, really being called to explore perhaps different healing modalities to help you restore your faith in your sense of self, but also the connectivity of the individuation process to this thing called life again as a whole. And so Saturn is helping you now stabilize and firm up some of those beliefs and also get serious about what is not staying and what cannot stay. This does not correspond to who you are and who you're agreeing to become in this next phase of your life, the perpetual individuation that many of us are undergoing with Saturn now in Aries as a collective shift of birthing a new container for what it means to essentially be. As well, Saturn and Neptune will be squaring Jupiter, the ruler of this full moon, in that 12th house space. So the work that you're doing now in this higher visioning for your life comes into direct square tension with Jupiter expanding what is in that 12th house space, expanding the work that you have been doing to till the soil back when Mars was in Cancer, both going direct and retrograde. Okay. And then going direct again. And so now, based on the work you're doing, it's going to harmonize you with this sword in your hand in terms of Mars now being in your sign, Leo, in that first house space, to truly cut away that which no longer serves you, that's about you and your identity and how you're choosing to show up as a very assertive force, speaking your truth and cutting away that which does not align with it, particularly as it relates to your authentic self-expression that is heart-centered and also allows you to be free in terms of your playfulness, to truly move from a place that is from harmonizing with the heart. And Leo, what this looks like, or what it can show up like, is you being unapologetically shining your light bright through authentic self-expression, which is what you came here to be, because you were under the sign and archetype of the sun, hence Leo, that rules Leo. And this beautiful Mars in your first house is trining this full moon in your fifth house. And the fifth house is also associated with Leo, with self-expression, with creativity, with the creative force that is the underpinnings of life. Okay. And so that also can have to do with your children as well. And so the culmination is supported by what you are cutting away in terms of what is no longer who you are and who you are agreeing to be as you continuously step forward and allow the support of Mars's transit through that 12th house to really allow you to step in as a new version of yourself, having done that work. And now that work is also being amplified with Jupiter in that 12th house space to express itself now through the first house of self. And this is being harmonized in a grand trine with Chiron, transit Mars in your first house, and of course the full moon culminating in the fifth. And so a lot of the healing work is helping you to really stabilize and be firm in how you're wielding power. Another thing I want to say is that you're looking really good right now, Leo, because you have Venus now in the sign of Taurus in that 12th house space, in that 10th house space of your career, reputation, how the world sees you, how the world calls you to be. And Taurus Venus is in its domicile. It's comfortable there. It's highly magnetic and attractive. And it's making a sextile now to newly minted Jupiter in your 12th house space. And so it's creating a very wide yacht to the full moon in your fifth house. And so the apex exit point where this intense energy is needing to express itself is in your 11th house with your groups of friends, long-term hopes and dreams, networks, and where you truly feel called to belong. Okay. And so here we have a lot of ideation ideas where previously the Jupiter going into Cancer, we were doing a lot of work in terms of exploring, experimenting, utilizing words, ideas, our communication, our mental faculties, the way in which we're able to organize our systems of thought to receive information and also to organize it to then move on. So what becomes the underpinning for how we make meaning to inform what then later on becomes belief. And so here we have a culmination of Jupiter's energy now highlighted by the sun as Jupiter moves on to demonstrate what has materialized in this space that is informing and underpinning a larger narrative of this full moon from the fifth house, right? And it's also helping you perhaps be more authentic in terms of aligning with the people, the benefactors, the larger visions and dreams and hopes that truly feel good to you, with so much spaciousness informed by Jupiter's stay in Gemini. And now we're getting to nourish and nurture that. And in this way, perhaps Jupiter is sowing seeds in that 12th house space to materialize that, not just in that 11th house space, but the areas that help you to further expand the very reasons you incarnated in the first place, which again are being supported with that Saturn, Neptune, Aries acting as a container to bring it forth in that ninth house space, get clear on what the belief then becomes with all this fine tuning, expansiveness, and blessings with Jupiter state and Gemini in that 11th house, right? In addition to now having this full moon culmination that rules or is ruled by Jupiter, also neutral reception now to actually sow the seeds, pour the water, nourish, steward this vision into being, particularly in the era of your sky that is heart-centered, that is around your children, that is around your creativity, that is around what and how you create. And that is essentially who you are, Leo, at your core. And so that is what I have for you, dear Leos. Wishing you so much love. Good luck. Virgo, this full moon is happening in your fourth house space. So a culmination in home, family, living situation, maybe something to do with your parents, your mother in particular. Also, a culmination around something ancestral is being let go and or is changing and transforming for a new beginning. As well, this full moon is a mutual reception with Jupiter now in the sign of Cancer in your 11th house of friends, your networks, your group associations. Also, this is linked to your long-term hopes and wishes and dreams. And sometimes we can see your benefactor in this space. And so perhaps something connected with a benefactor giving you some blessings to help you create some momentum on some longer term hopes and dreams and wishes is also connected to this change and culmination happening in that fourth house space. Perhaps they're helping you to redesign one of your rooms so you can turn it into a studio for your podcasting. Anything is possible here with this full moon. It's really blessed. And of course, you have had Mars going through that 12th house space in the sign of Leo, which is trining this full moon in addition to trining Chiron in your 8th house, excuse me. And in that 8th house, you've probably felt some wounding with partners, resources. Maybe your partners haven't had a lot to share with you. Maybe there's been a unwillingness to share and or some mistrust around sharing the most intimacies of your private life with others or what others are sharing with you. However, the lessons that you've learned in this 8th house space are powerful ones that may allow you to be very assertive in how you're able to look at the wound, address it for greater transparency, for greater assertiveness about what you need and what you expect from others in terms of your ability to be receptive and also very much still be yourself, right? As Aries rules that 8th house space. So it's always important for you to be in relationships where you're able to bring your full self, even if you're learning and you're developing as you go. But it's important that you're able to express yourself authentically. And now Saturn in the sign of Aries with Neptune, also in the sign of Aries in that 8th house space, it will be squaring Jupiter in Cancer in that 11th house. And so perhaps you're having to clarify for new relationships out of your friend circles or your networks, perhaps this new benefactor, what you need, perhaps clarifying how you receive, how you will not receive, and greater boundaries that really align with your sacred I am. And so in this way, Saturn is creating more stability around relationship dynamics with sharing and receiving that truly serve who you know yourself to be and who you are becoming. Furthermore, Neptune is also in this house. So those patterns, inheritances that no longer serve you will also be dissolved. There also may be enhanced psychic attunement, particularly when engaging with partners, maybe partners who are more assertive, partners who tend to have a very masculine approach, and also like a conquest approach to life. And so there may be a heightened intuition around said partnerships and also a likelihood of receiving and or not receiving. And this is all impacting Jupiter, amplifying this in how it shows up as you connect in groups of belonging, as you connect in your networks, as you connect with your friends, maybe friends who are no longer friends because of this dynamic, right? And so as this work has been done in terms of the woundedness that you've clearly seen and had to truly get honest about to heal it, is blessing you up in that fourth house space. It's allowing you to have more autonomy. So whatever is ending there is definitely ending for something that benefits you for and toward your long-term dreams and wishes and hopes. As well, Venus is newly in the sign of Taurus in your ninth house space. So perhaps you have opportunities, Virgo, to travel in the next few months as Venus is in that space. Venus is also sextiling Jupiter for a large, wide yod, finger of God, and the exit point is in your 10th house of career. So perhaps, again, the changes that are happening in that fourth house space are very much connected to a breakthrough of energy that feels largely destined in that 10th house space where you did have Jupiter previously blessing you up and expanding it. So perhaps something there has finally taken and stuck in a way that truly aligns with your long-term hopes and dreams. And so, dear Virgo, that is what I have for you. Sending you much love and good luck. Libra. So this full moon is happening in your third house space that rules your younger siblings, your aunts and your uncles, your cousins, your neighbors, and also maybe the local area that you grew up within. In addition to that, the third house rules mental frameworks. So the way that you filter information, the way that your mind processes information. So all the things that support your meaning making that then inform how ideation becomes a belief. Okay, so this is like also the house of the lower mind. This also rules transportation, and sometimes it's linked to social media. And so you're having a culmination and ending in this third house space. So this could have something that's being revealed that has something to do with, again, one of those people. So again, siblings, your aunts and uncles, or your neighbors, and or maybe maybe you're selling a car and it's finally getting sold. Congratulations if that's you, right? As well, this moon is in Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is now officially in the sign of Cancer. And so it's in mutual reception. And Jupiter and Cancer is in your 10th house space. So you're also now seeing from this full moon an expansion that's beginning in that 10th house space related to your career, your reputation, your social standing. And this also is linked to blessings and a glow up in this area of life that also, again, is connected to that third house space. Saturn now is in Aries, newly minted, in addition to Neptune in Aries, in that seventh house space, and is squaring Jupiter, the ruler of this full moon. And so partners may not necessarily be what they seem, particularly with Neptune now in Aries. So you're having to be more discerning in terms of who you're partnering with and how you're partnering. In addition to that, Saturn may also create some challenges for partners where they may be having some unique challenges or hardships in their life that may also show up in terms of being expanded under this full moon for some surprises and or some challenges, restrictions, delays as it relates to this beginning that's unfolding in that 10th house space. However, the blessings are unmistakable for you, dear Libra, as again, Jupiter likes to be in that 10th house and it likes to be in Cancer. And so in that space, it's expanding again, worldly success. As well, your chart ruler Venus is now in the sign of Taurus in sextile to Jupiter, the ruler of this full moon, from your eighth house, which means that same partners that you have that are established are more likely to want to share with you, share resources with you in ways in which really help to stabilize your resources, particularly resources of a financial nature. Sometimes this is sharing with you emotionally, providing support to you. In addition to that, it can be resources in different ways. It doesn't always have to be money, right? And as well, people or your partners or potential partners may just like you more now because the eighth house is also how you're esteemed. And again, Taurus is a sign that, is in domicile when when Venus is in Taurus. And as well as that, Taurus is a fixed sign. So affections that bloom or begin now tend to be lasting ones. So keep that in mind. And again, Venus is sextiling Jupiter, the ruler of this new moon, while in a large finger of God yod in conjunction, both of these planets and these signs to the Sagittarius full moon. And so there is an exit point of this energy that's intense that moves and comes through the Gemini part of your sky where you've just had Jupiter for a whole year. And so you've probably been learning things that have been of a higher nature, really seeing a greater understanding to maybe the bigger cosmic picture that's helping you to renew your sense of purpose in life and reminding you as to why you came here. So this is also connected to this full moon in terms of how this is being progressed and informing what happens next in that 10th house space. Again, is very much signified under this full moon. Last but not least, Mars is in your 11th house, making a trine to this full moon and a trine to Chiron in that 7th house space, where again, you have your one-to-one partnerships, maybe your marketplace, your audiences, contracts, as well as open enemies. Sometimes the court cases are also here, even though sometimes they get settled in that 9th house space. So with Mars in Leo, making this grand trine to this moon, you may have been very aggressive pursuing your friends, and or your friend groups have been aggressive pursuing you, or maybe you've been taking a lot of action to sever and cut anything in your networks, your groups, and or ideated dreams and wishes that do not actually serve your dreams and wishes and what you see or envision for your life based on the work you've been doing, again, with Jupiter in that 9th for the past year. However, your partners have been wounded, in short. And so perhaps now the lessons you've learned around having to engage one-to-one with wounded people while still being asked to show up and understand the meaning and clarify your sacred I am in terms of what are your boundaries, right? And therefore, how you either merge with others and or do not, hence you do have Uranus in that 8th house shaking things up also for the last several years. I say this all because the lessons you learned in terms of having to deal with wounded people in that partnership area is also very much medicine that's also being blessed and harmonizing with this full moon to truly allow you to align with the partnerships and or the containers for partnerships that call you to foremost hold your ground and have the sacred contract that then can invite people in a way that's both healing for you and also as a consequence, a healing for them. That is what I have for you, Libra. Good luck and much love. Scorpio, so this full moon is happening in your 2nd house of finances or the income that you earn, so income earning activities. This is also the house of your values, your sense of worth, your self-esteem, your self-love, also your assets, the things that you possess. Sometimes this is related to your family and other times to what you take into yourself. So whether it's like the food you put in your mouth or even the media that you watch, the books that you read, the philosophies that you binge on or that you practice and you like take in as like your identity. This is because you also have Sagittarius ruling that 2nd house and the full moon is culminating here. So maybe there's an ending in one way of earning money in terms of like the mundane. Maybe there's a huge shift in your self-concept and your value system where something that was once very sacred is no longer that for you. And so it's being released. Maybe you're offloading an asset under this full moon, right? And or maybe you're offloading a way of orienting or relating to it. For example, maybe you were a part owner of a house and maybe you bought somebody else out, right? So now it's an ending, but this ending is also blessed where it's also expanding again what you've shared with others because one, the moon is in mutual reception with Jupiter now in Cancer in your 9th house space. So again, that's the space related to the higher mind, higher learning, law as an ethic and morality. So sometimes we see issues around legal matters in the higher mind here. We also have this related to sometimes third marriages, in addition to book publishing, again, philosophies and spiritual practice in terms of like gurus and shamans, and also traveling abroad. And so what you may be disconnecting from in the 2nd house or what's culminating may also be very much directly connected to expansion in that 9th house space. Okay. As well, there's an apex, oh, excuse me, there's a yod between Venus now in the sign of Taurus, making a sextile to Jupiter, the ruler of this moon, now in the sign of Cancer in the ninth house space. It's a very wide yod to Sagittarius. Hence, it still has intensity as the moon moves very quickly. So we're seeing the buildup of that yod as we move towards the fullness of the moon. And the release is the release point is the apex point, which is Gemini, where the sun is. And so we've had Jupiter also in that area of your chart, which is the eighth house, for over a year. So you may have saw an expansion of money come to you that you don't earn. Maybe you would have had some huge psychological breakthroughs, energetic breakthroughs, inheritances, ideas that really help to shift your sense of who you are, your psyche, and or help you dislodge deep psychological challenges that have been in your life for so long, it seemed like it was a part of you. This could have also had you see benefits through your partners. Maybe your partner had their income or their assets increase that they were able then to share with you, and just overall greater support from others, particularly through methods or means that connected to the mercurial part of your sky, which again is the eighth house in addition to the 11th house. So it could be connected to your friendships as well, particularly friends from the past, because the South Node is in that 11th house space. As well, Mars, your chart ruler, is in the sign of Leo in that 10th house space. So whatever has been cleared out, as you know, you are Mars, has very much supported this full moon, or supports what is culminating that second house space. It could even look like you have taken so much action in that 10th house space to have or create another source of income. So rather than one ending, one can perhaps there's been a closing of maybe a lack of resources coming to you, and now one has opened up that's culminating, coming to fruition on this full moon. And so that's also supported by Chiron and Aries. So taking better care of your health, becoming aware of a need to be more proactive on health matters, and understanding that health matters sometimes have a connection to your relationships, and or you perform better in relationships. You're more clear about your relationships when you take better care of your health, not on a one-off, but on day to day. Right? As your day-to-day is a very energetic, because you have Aries ruling that sixth house space, and you also have now Saturn and Neptune in that sixth house space, one asking for greater responsibility from you to show up, to take care of your body, take care of day-to-day matters. That is also in a conflict with Jupiter, the ruler of this moon. And so with that being said, it's expanding your call to show up every day to address conflict in ways in which holds you accountable to act, particularly now, with a higher sense of integrity, one that connects you to your heart space that the world is seeing, right? And of course, as I mentioned, this is in a trine, a grand trine to Chiron, and this full moon from your 10th house space, where Mars is now in the sign of Leo, transiting the ruler of your chart. And so the woundedness that has happened through the sixth house, whether it's dealing with different crises, maybe too much debt, maybe again a health matter, maybe the loss of a pet. I'm sorry that happened to you. But all of this wisdom that's come through this woundedness is also supporting you to take that action, and seeing that action reap a reward in that second house space of, again, what you have, what you can possess, and the ways in which you can earn more resources, particularly money, to you. Okay. That is what I have for you, my Scorpio friends. Good luck and much love. Sagittarius, this full moon is happening in your first house. Ta-da, it's all about you. And so there's a culmination in a part of your identity. Perhaps a way of being is no longer jiving with you and is being released under this full moon. Perhaps you're stepping into a more fuller, more authentic, more raw version of yourself, one that is all about that freedom. Jupiter's now in the sign of Cancer in mutual reception with the full moon, as Jupiter rules your sign. And so Jupiter in Cancer means that you may be feeling a surge of resources that are being shared with you, particularly those that support you to feel more taken care of, supported, nourished, connected to family in ways in which are not always seen in the tangible ways, but definitely uh, beyond the veil, as the eighth house is also energetic inheritances. And so there are some blessings showing up here that are giving you greater momentum, greater room that allow you to release identities that no longer serve you in a way in which it feels freeing to do so. And so this full moon is also supported by Mars in the sign of Leo in your ninth house space. So you have also been doing a lot of soul searching, thinking about your purpose, thinking about the meaning of life, thinking about what you believe in, because we know that what you believe in informs how you know yourself, particularly you, Sagittarius, because movement allows you to access stillness to really commune with powers that are very much a part of you, but also that you feel are beyond you. And that's how you connect to your at one moment. And so Mars in that ninth house space, very much also about being heart centered, what truly moves you is connected to your fifth house where you are moved, hence by your children, by what you create, as well as your romantic lovers, as well as business speculations, where you have fun based on your legitimate joy, right? And so you are now one taking that more seriously because we have Saturn now in the sign of Aries in that fifth house space, but you've had Chiron there. So there's been some woundedness. And so having to really think about fun, joy, love, the heart, authentic expression differently. And reckoning with that is being supported in terms of what has come from those conversations, what has come from taking a risk aggressively to really come to know and honor what moves you and what truly feeds your heart and your soul. What that is now being revealed under this full moon. And you are again having a new lease on life, releasing one identity to step into a more authentic one. Venus is now in the sign of Taurus, which is making a yod relationship to this full moon. It's a wide one as it sextiles Jupiter and Cancer from your sixth house of day-to-day routine, work, health matters, small animals, and sometimes just crises overall. And so you've had a lot of up and down, disruption, radical changes, surprises and shocks in your day-to-day life with Uranus have been there for some years. And now you have some sweetness with Taurus, bringing some greater ease, some pleasantness to day-to-day life. And that's again supporting people more giving to you and sharing resources with you, resources that you don't have to fight and earn and be a pick-me to receive, but rather with greater ease and effortlessness. And so this, however, is in conjunction to your sun, moon, or rising, depending on what you're watching for, but it's more active for rising. We're going to stay there. And as the moon progresses to its fullness, there will be an intensity, one that will take place and be most revealed and as the release point in that seventh house of partnerships in the sign of Gemini. And you're no stranger to this energy right now because you've had Jupiter, your chart ruler, move through that seventh house space. And so you've seen your partner get blessed up. You've seen partnerships, open enemies that just weren't jiving. You've seen some shifts and some movement toward greater amicability and ways in which it's always working out as you relate to others, even where it's been like very messy and sometimes like superfluous. Okay. And so there's a release point that we see come to pass under this full moon with partners. That's a make it or break it based on now you saying unapologetically, I'm being this, and or I'm stepping into a new version of me that maybe also very much aligns with partners in a unique way that will set the stage for greater abundance and resources that will come to you through committed partnerships. And as I mentioned, Saturn is now in that fifth house space with Neptune in the early degrees, making a square to Jupiter, the ruler of this moon. And so you're having to become more responsible for your joy, for what stirs your heart. Maybe there's matters with your children that are asking you to also create more structure for them. As well, things that have been fun or pleasing in the past may no longer be that for you. And so you'll see some dissolving around this area of your life with Neptune's influence there. However, Saturn will constantly show you what you're harvesting to have the ability to become more intentional about what it is that truly matters to you and matters of the heart, play, and how you want to and choose to show up to steward what it is you create, whether it's your actual human children or inanimate objects, projects, you name it, that's it. Okay. And again, with Mars right now under this full moon in that ninth house space, you have a lot to think about and a lot that you've thought about, you've taken action on. And so, what the soil you're tilling in that space is very much going to help you and serve you as you progress for the next 2.5 years with Saturn in that fifth house space to make decisions to allow you to become the authority in the state of your joy and your life. That is what I have for you, Sagittarius. Sending you much love and good luck. Capricorn, this is happening for you in your 12th house of where you go to be by yourself. It's happening in the areas of your psyche where you can't really see it, where people can't really see you. This is happening in terms of where you may move to, but it's really, 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 really far away from the place that you were born. It's also connected to how you have behaviors that may not be, again, as visible to your conscious in terms of how you undo yourself. We also have sometimes secret enemies that show up in this part of the chart connected to this archetype, and or it's where we meet God, right? It's where we not just meet God, but where we merge and merge in terms of release and surrender ourselves to become part of other or another, right? And that other is always reaching towards a greater oneness with all of life. That's the 12th house. And that's where this full moon is culminating for you. And this is, of course, a Jupiter ruled moon. Of course, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. And Jupiter is now in the sign of Cancer. So this moon is in mutual reception with Jupiter and Cancer. And Jupiter and Cancer is in your 7th house of romantic partnerships, your committed romantic partnerships. Let me get clear about that, as well as contracts, one-to-one encounters, as well as open enemies. And so the 7th house is also connected to sometimes your audience as well. And so in this house, you're going to see some blessings, prior to when the year started, Mars was in Cancer, going direct, going retrograde, going direct again. And Mars is in fall in Cancer, and Mars exalts you. However, in the sign of Cancer, it probably wasn't really hard for you. And so you probably had relationship challenges up your butt for some time. I say this all because Jupiter now is going to bring some healing and some lightness and some loving, tender support that you thrive on in partnerships to this sector of your life. And it's in mutual reception with this moon, which means that whatever is culminating for you, whatever's being released, because full moons are also about releases, but if you understand energetics, you understand that what you release also creates space to now be attractive or magnetic for something else to come in. And we're always seeing that something else is something now better than what no longer was, that obviously no longer served you. So with the full moon culminating in this 12th house, more than not, you're having some mental construct that was in the way, some belief that was just wedged there and doing you no good is now coming to see the light of the moon under this full moon to now be let go and released, and therefore purged from your system. And this is now helping you to, one, heal something in that 4th house space that has been such a thorn in your side where perhaps you have not felt settled at home. There's been pain, and that pain is connected to something deeply ancestral, because the 4th house is also about our ancestral wounds that we inherit in the actual body that then informs sometimes, most times, the ego construct, how you come to know yourself to be in ways in which sometimes can be expansive, other times very limiting, and therefore, becomes a cycle in one's ancestral generation. So you've had some issues with how this is showing up wherever you go that you've probably called home, wherever you've tried to settle, because wherever you go, you take yourself. And so Chiron has been trying to bring these woundedness to your attention. And under this full moon, it is being healed, and it's connected to what is being let go in that 12th house space in terms of what has been nestled and informing your psyche through beliefs. And of course, Mars, which exalts you, is now in the sign of Leo in that eighth house space. And so you've been also severing, you know, relationships, committed ones that have not served you in terms of yielding forth, perhaps the love and the appreciation, the attention that you need. And that also facilitates you to have greater access to others' resources. And or perhaps you've been utilizing heart-centered approaches, your creativity, your authentic, raw self-expression to have greater access to support from others. And that's very much harmonizing with this full moon. And of course, Chiron, where the wound has been, to perhaps allow you to move deeper into relationship that is now giving you the opportunity through this full moon to expand committed partnerships as Jupiter now sets the stage to go through the seven. Venus obviously loves you from the sign of Taurus, which is a mutual earth sign, and is now in your fifth house. So you're more open for joy, joy that very much values sensual pleasure. And this has been definitely like wild card energy for you with Uranus in that fifth house space. But I'm mentioning Venus now in the sign of Taurus because it is sextiling Jupiter now in Cancer to that seventh house space, which is making a in conjunction to the moon in Sagittarius. And so we're seeing a yacht in your chart, and the exit point is in Gemini, the release point. And so you've had Jupiter prior to it moving into Cancer in that sixth house space. So expanding work opportunities. Some you love, some you really don't, because sometimes this is also connected to the house of like service. So it's not always the work that we like, but it is a mental house, by which I mean it's a mercurial house and you have Mercury there. So it still works, particularly as you're able to become more ingenious with your ideas to finesse perhaps work to make it work for you. So you've seen expansion here, you've seen some luck and opportunities. And so something that is showing up in this sixth house space of work is very much connected to this full moon as it grows full and becomes exact on June 11th. But prior to that, there's something that shakes up in that sixth house space that very much sets the stage for this new opportunity for relationships to begin, ones that truly honor and serve and support you in ways in which you've been missing. As well, ways that now can build on what you've learned about yourself, what you're letting go under this full moon, that can actually allow you to show up as the container that you want to experience with others to set the stage for now how you want to create family that may look very different from the one in which you came from. That is what I have for you, Capricorns. Sending you much love and good luck. Aquarius, this full moon is happening for you in the 11th house of your friends, your hopes and wishes, your dreams, your benefactors, also your social networks. And so also your thoughts about the future. Like we need to add that. The 11th house is also like the vision for the future, right? And so this full moon is culminating something for you here. It's actually a really beautiful full moon for everyone, but I like it in the 11th house because it means that something is coming to an end. And usually that means like something is birthing in terms of a long journey through the lunation process. And for you, that's more than likely seeing a hope and a dream and a wish materialize under the full moon. The full moon is also in mutual reception with Jupiter now in the sign of Cancer, which is in your sixth house. And so what that can look like for you, Aquarius, is some new opportunities to be a support person, someone of service to your community, one of your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your neighbors, people who just live around you. Maybe you're supporting the Boys and Girls Club in your local area, and or you're connected to people you grew up with. This is because this full moon is being the full moon is not being squared. The ruler of the full moon is being squared by Saturn and Neptune now in your third house. And this is really important for you because Saturn rules you, Aquarius. And so it was for a long time in your second house of resources, your self-esteem, how you earn income and or how you were feeling restricted from earning income and or feeling you had to work really, really, really hard to earn income. And when I say work really, really hard, I mean like work really hard in terms of understanding your internal blocks to being able to earn the income that you so easily share with others. You're a very generous person, and Saturn here is asking you to learn about how the generosity that you share with others, you don't actually share with yourself in the same ways. And so that may have been a really important lesson for you because you have Mars on the 10th house in terms of it rules your 10th house through Scorpio in the midheaven. And this means that in your life, you are called to be a container, a transmuter of heavy energies as your work, no matter what that work is. Right. And this is connected to your reputation. So you're someone who transforms a lot. I mention this because this full moon is really activating that sixth house and demonstrating that there's a shift in your work, one connected to your groups, your social networks, your friends, right? And of course, with Saturn and Neptune now squaring Jupiter and Cancer in the sixth house, it's asking you to step forward with greater integrity, a greater sense of responsibility and duty. The sixth house is about service, right? And Saturn is about duty in terms of you are harvesting what it is that informs how you know yourself to be. Hence, in Aries, the sacred I am. Okay. And so you might have to check people who are aggressive with you naturally, normally in that third house space, maybe your younger siblings, your neighbors, your aunts and uncles, your cousins, right? In terms of now you're doing so to hold space for them as a container for their own wounding. Hence, you've had Chiron in that third house space for many years, showing that a lot of people who are around you are wounded. Okay. And so now you're stepping in with authority because, again, you are Saturn ruled like Capricorn. And so you're being asked to release and support them release what ideas about the self that no longer serve them. And so collectively, this may be a time where we all are learning a new story about who we are, what humanity is, what it means to be human. And, individually, we're also having to navigate that. And so you are one of those signs who are navigating that work and helping us usher in this new sense of self to now, align with and help us create a new world, a new way of being in this world or in the world that then emerges from our consciousness. And this is important because, again, it aligns with becoming a container with Scorpio in that 10th house for others to hold heavy frequencies. Okay. And this corresponds then with Jupiter, in that square from the sixth to the third, that very much is calling you and showing you the way in which reconciling the square shows up in that 11th house space of your higher dreams and visions. As an Aquarius, typically your dreams and visions are not just for yourself, they're also for others. So that's something that I think is really important for you to consider under this full moon. Mars is in your seventh house of partnerships, committed ones. It's also in contract, but it's also the house connected to contracts, your audience, marketplace, also open enemies. People just may be fairly aggressive with you. And so this also is something to consider when thinking about this new role that you're stepping into from that third house space, with Saturn now in Aries and with Chiron in Aries. It is trining Mars in the seventh house and also trining this moon, right? So it's giving you an opportunity to show up differently. What have you learned about being surrounded by your siblings, your neighborhood, your neighbors in your neighborhood, and people being wounded, aggressive, not so nice? What have you learned? How have you learned to hold that? How have you learned to heal that in terms of how you show up? And how does that impact folks? Because that very much is informing something in terms of your longer dreams and or something showing up in community or in terms of your friends and how you're able to perhaps transmute this energy to become friends, because Mars rules who you're called to be in the world. Okay. So all that aggressive energy for you has been material to transmute to show up with greater now authority in the world. That, again, Saturn, your chart ruler, is saying, hey, I'm here. Look at me now. Right. And by way of being a container, hence creating the boundaries between you and them. But of course, with, your way of earning income, it's always about, and how you understand and value yourself, it's always about your oneness with all that is. Okay. That's a lot of food for thought, Aquarius. I'm going to leave it there. Sending you much love and good luck. Pisces, this is happening for you in your 10th house space of career, how you're seen in the world, your worldly success, your reputation, your social standing. And so you're having a culmination, an ending of sorts in that 10th house space. Maybe you are getting married. Maybe you're becoming a parent for the very first time. Maybe you're ending one career. Maybe you're starting a new one. right? All those things are huge transitions that we see in that 10th house space. And of course, Jupiter rules you in addition to this full moon. And so Jupiter now is in the sign of Cancer, which is really important for you because Jupiter one is exalted in Cancer. It is your ruler, which means you are getting so much blessings from this full moon, like extra blessings, extra kisses, extra hugs, extra attention. Like it's all about you. And honestly, you deserve it. So I'm not even going to hate. Obviously, a lot of Pisces. And so Jupiter now in Cancer is in your fifth house space. So it's expanding your joy, what truly stirs your heart. It's bringing greater blessings to your children, to what you create. So whether it's a business, whether it's like prayers, whether it's ritual, whether it's a really cool container for other people to, feel nurtured and a sense of belonging to something bigger than just their own networks, maybe the universe, cosmic, whatever, think of it, you can do it. That's expanding and it's getting a lot of momentum, attention, and, growth as well. Fifth house not only rules your children, but it is a house of good luck. It's a house where you can see speculation take off in your favor. So sometimes this house is associated with gambling. And of course, Jupiter likes to be in Cancer. So, ooh, it's just a lot of goodness happening for you, for your children, for your creativity, for your intuition, and for things that truly not only bring you joy and heart-centered fun, but also a deep sense of belonging and safety and just inner joy. And so Jupiter is also being squared by Saturn newly in your second house of resources, your income earning activities, uh, how you understand yourself, your values, your sense of self-worth. This sometimes is the house of what you put in your mouth or what you ingest. And so this can also be affirmations that you ingest and or ideas of who you are from your family, because the second house is related to family. And the reason why I'm saying ingesting ideas about who you've been told you are is because Aries is on that second house, and Aries is the sacred I am, right? It's how you come to identify yourself, right? It's about identity and identity based on who you decide to be and therefore show up and take action on that and therefore become it. It's also the process of individuation. So with Saturn here, checking Jupiter in the early degrees. It's not going to happen forever. It's just happening in the month of June. So everyone who's been listening, and if you've listened this far, you're now hearing me say that. That's fine. But it's really asking you to be intentional about your I am, right? And it's giving you the material that it's expanding from your Jupiter fifth house, where Jupiter now is in your fifth house. So maybe even seeing if you have kids, it show up in what are you giving your kids? What are you not giving your kids? Right? There will be seemingly expansion of this seeming tension. It doesn't have to be a tension, but whatever it is, it will be expanded. So whatever is in that fifth house informing the I am and or what you think it is versus what it is, you're going to get clarity. And that clarity is going to ask you to go forward with it and be accountable, hence responsible. We're talking Saturn energy, and or to release and dissolve it with intention. Hence Neptune is also in the sign of Aries in that second house space. And so here you see a dissolving of what has been accumulated in that second house related to who you've been, who you thought you were, and who you are becoming with greater intention, hence Saturn. Okay. And there's been a lot of woundedness. So you've probably done a lot of work around becoming receptive to your I am in terms of how you understand yourself in relationship to God and to the world, and whether you're receptive to God and or not, right? As Aries is the first sign, so it is about survival, right? I've mentioned this elsewhere that Aries, is really trying to survive to bloom. Hence, it's fighting through the winter to make it to spring to bloom. And Saturn is a sign about harvest. So you're going to see very clearly what you've been harvesting, but you've been doing a lot of work to really get accountable and get clear about the ideas you've had about who you've been that have been linked to woundedness around not feeling enough to take up space, not just feeling enough, and having to, do the work to declare and decree that you are enough to therefore be receptive to the resources that allow you, in fact, to survive, right? Because the second house is also about survival, but Aries is very much about survival through identity and through the fight to then come alive. Hence, I've arrived. Okay. And so you're seeing this have a direct impact on a greater sense of perhaps expansion in that 10th house space. Yes. And so that very much is culminating one role or one way of being, one status that now is opening greater expanding for another. Okay. Uh, and again, watch Jupiter. I think that's the most important for you just because Jupiter is your chart ruler. You also have the North Node in your first house, so you're expanding your identity again, expanding this moon because it's basically making a wider square to the North Node. But that's amazing because what it's doing is just again asking you to show up bigger, right? And with Jupiter now in your fifth house, it's more about the heart centeredness. And again, with the grand trine between Mars now in your sixth house, to Chiron in your second, and the full moon in your 10th, whatever work you're doing day to day to address, um, health matters, crises, work, your care for small animals, also anything related just to day-to-day routine, really needing to harmonize your environment as a reflection of yourself. But with, again, Leo on that sixth house, the reflection is very much a heart-centered one, right? And needing to really clear out what no longer aligns with your heart has been happening for you during this transit of Leo, Mars through Leo. And it's very much, again, harmonized with this full moon. So what is now showing up for you, what's ending, again, is a demonstration of that work. And that work is very deep, connected to woundedness and the healing of, very perhaps ancient wounds, maybe not so much, depending on, how you understand yourself. But that again is expanding to allow for that culmination. That very much is a blessed one. Again, as I mentioned, creating greater expansion in ways in which truly align with your heart, truly align with your joy, and what truly feeds and nourishes you to be at your best. That is what I have for you, Pisces. I'm sending you much love and good luck. So that is my video for you all. Thank you so much for making it to the end. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you like what I've shared, please let me know. Send me a comment, give me a like, please subscribe, hit the notification button to do so. And again, I hope you all have a wonderful full moon. I'm sorry I got this out later than I expected, but it's out and I'm happy about that. I'm sending you all much love and I will see you soon.